that, but there is math involved.
Okay. I was a history major. It's going to go great.
Listen, I'm a writer. I'm bad with math. I like being on this side of the math questions, though. I'm with Alison Fox. She's the CEO of American Prairie. American Prairie is a Montana-based conservation project working to create one of the largest nature preserves in America. Alison, thank you so much for being here. Allie? What am I calling you?
Allie's great.
Allie,
Thanks, Joe.
right.
It's nice to be here.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about this. I did not know what American Prairie was coming into this. So give me a broad stroke overview of what you guys are, what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you gave a great 10-second version. So American Prairie, it has been in business now for almost 24 years. We were founded in Montana, and we were founded in Montana to do one thing, and that is to assemble a publicly accessible nature reserve up in north central Montana. And we could talk about how we do that, but that nature reserve today is about 500,000 acres, more than 500,000 acres of deeded and leased public land that American Prairie manages. And we have properties up in about 7 counties around the Charlie Russell National Wildlife Refuge up in the north central part of the state.
The headline number that I keep coming back to is 3.2 million acres. That is your goal. It's a staggering number. Why did you settle on that number as the goal? And has that been the goal since the beginning?
That has been the goal since the beginning. I think an important caveat, important baseline to start with is there is an existing wildlife refuge up along the Missouri with Missouri River frontage and breaks, and that's called the Charlie Russell National Wildlife Refuge.
Okay.
That's 1.1 million acres. I think it's the largest or second largest wildlife refuge in the lower 48. It is a tremendous resource managed for wildlife. So of the 3.2 million acres, that's the 1.1 million acre head start is how I like to characterize it. So American Prairie's goal is to add habitat for wildlife and manage that habitat for wildlife and public access around the Charlie Russell to the tune of 2 million acres. So when I say we've assembled about 527,000 acres, to be precise, that's 527,000 towards that 2 million acre goal.
Okay.
And now to answer your question
Yes,
about
please.
why. It's a size that conservation biologists recommend about 5,000 square miles for a fully functioning ecosystem. So the idea is that you could have all the species that were once there back again, migration patterns, natural hydrology, events like fire and drought, all these events that ecological events that shape the landscape have those natural processes occurring on the landscape.
Does the shape of it matter?
No, the shape doesn't matter. And is it, his 3.1 failure? No,
Okay.
So it's a target, right? It's a target, and what we're really looking for is a complete temperate grassland ecosystem. And we can delve as far into this as you'd like, but temperate grasslands are the least protected biome across the globe. And in North America, in the northern Great Plains, this area was identified nearly a quarter century ago as a place where you could restore a fully functioning ecosystem.
Which brings me to this question: Is the prairie worth saving? I mean, in the song, you go from the mountains to the prairie to the ocean, white with foam. The prairie is like flyover country, right? I mean, that's no one's final destination. What is great about the prairie, Allie?
I appreciate that, Joe, because I think sometimes our jobs are to build a wildlife reserve, and other times it's there to educate people about grasslands, right? And actually, in my tenure in American Prairie, the appreciation for grasslands has grown quite a lot, both as the biome, but also for their recreation. And so maybe I will. Our vice president of access and infrastructure does a great job of circulating the guest book entries on some of our facilities, and they're really inspiring because people really love the prairie, and then they put that in writing these guest books. And someone said, "Well, finally, I'm out of the mountains and into big sky country." So maybe I'll appeal to the Montanans watching this by saying it's true big sky country. Another one that I really appreciated recently was, you make a tradition when you decide what's worth repeating, decide what you love and what's worth repeating. And this person's point was, we're coming to your huts on an annual basis because it's worth repeating. So it's the darkest place in Montana. It's the quietest place in Montana. It's a place where you can literally see for dozens and dozens of miles and sometimes see no other evidence of humanity. And it's big and it's open and sometimes it's challenging. And it's gorgeous. So yes, it is worth saving for its ecological benefits, but also its recreational benefits.
All right, it does sound pretty great. You mentioned the huts, so you just let people come here to this land. How does this work?
Yeah, so American Prairie is open for business. There's no gate fee. There's you can come out anytime. You can access our deeded lands, the lands that American Prairie owns. Importantly, you can cross our private lands in order to access your public lands, and we do that through a number of ways. We are one of the largest participants in the state's block management program, the public hunting program here in Montana. So we've got about 80,000 acres enrolled in that. So you can make reservations to go out and access properties if you're a hunter. We also have a system of visitor facilities. Right now, that's 2 campgrounds and 3 backcountry huts, which are basically like really nice Forest Service cabins.
Okay.
That's how I like to describe them. They're 2 of them are yurt based. One has hard walls, and they have bunk rooms. They sleep 8 or 9 people, and they're in gorgeous locations above the Missouri River, close to the Judith River, and above the Missouri River breaks. Those are the 3 locations of the existing huts, and they're just a great base camp for when you're going to float the river, bring your mountain bike, hike, bird watch, whatever,
Awesome.
Just.
And you reserve these?
You reserve these.
Okay.
The reservations just opened to the public about 2 weeks ago, maybe not even that long ago. So they're open, and it was really warm here in Montana yesterday. So people must be thinking about where they're going to be going this summer.
Seems worth looking into.
Yes.
Direct appeal to camera.
Yeah. That's right. That invitation was for you.
That's the time to do it. Nuts and bolts. How does this work? The way that you guys acquire public and private land and then add it to your big mass that you're working on.
Yeah.
Is it like just creating a giant conservation easement?
No, we don't.
No.
It's not an easement.
Okay.
We own these properties. So we are buying from willing sellers, whether those properties are going on the multiple listings or we're finding out about them from brokers. And so
Just trolling Zillow all day.
Yes, exactly. The ranch equivalent of Zillow, yes. So we have done 40-something transactions thus far. And so as properties come on the market that have high habitat values, high recreational values, and that are in the area where we're working, we work with a seller to see if we can come to a deal. And there's a lot of public land in this area, and those public land leases are tied to base properties. And so when you purchase just say a average size ranch, it might be 30,000 acres. 10,000 of those are deeded, and the other 2/3 is leased.
I read that there are no hiking trails really established in this prairie land. So I guess pretend you're the tour guide.
Yeah.
Right? And set up kind of a multi-day experience for me in the prairie. What would I be doing?
Yeah. We have a team member who likes to liken the prairie experience to skiing. So we have your green circle experience, and we also have your double black diamond experiences.
Got it.
And we have established a couple of interpretive trails, but there isn't a big network of trails. That is correct. There are a lot of existing 2-track roads, and so there are a lot of ways where you can loop together a hike or mountain biking on those trails. I would probably recommend making a reservation. Making a reservation at one of our facilities. Planning to stop at our National Discovery Center.
What am I making a reservation to do?
Okay, so you're making a reservation to stay overnight.
To be there.
To be, okay. Or well, to stay in one of our facilities.
Okay, cool.
If you just want to be there, you can just go.
Oh, all right.
But if you want to stay in one of our facilities, you need to make a reservation. So you'd make a reservation in a campground, and one of the campgrounds actually has little cabins too. So you could do, if you got your tent or your truck camper or your pull behind, or you can rent a cabin, or in one of the huts that I described. And then I'd recommend at least 2 nights, depending on how far you're traveling, maybe 3 nights out on the prairie. I'd plan to stop in Lewistown at American Prairie's National Discovery Center. That is a visitor and community outreach center right on Main Street in Lewistown. Meet some of our staff, ask lots of questions, get like a good orientation on not just American Prairie and American Prairie's mission, but the prairie, since you think it's flyover country.
The jokester in me said that.
No. You have teenage sons. You might want to go to book our Lewis and Clark hut right on the Missouri River. You might want to bring your kayaks or your paddle boards and plan to play out on the river. You might want to bring your mountain bikes and plan to ride the 2 tracks in the roads on that property. You definitely want to plan to spend a lot of time sitting on the deck watching the sunset over the Missouri in the breaks, because that's just tremendous with your beverage of choice. You want to open yourself up to just being awed by the landscape, observing the really dark skies, hearing the meadowlarks at 4 a.m., especially if you're in a tent. It's tremendous, and you need to be prepared. This is more akin to going to Forest Service land than it is a national park.
Okay. There's no 7-Eleven nearby.
No 7-Eleven, no gas station. Towing is very, very far away. Yeah. So you want to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle, plenty of potable water, your food. You want to be prepared to go out for that period of time. Self-rescue if you need to, which, Montanans we do that all the time.
We're used to that.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. Excellent tour guiding. I'm totally sold. It sounds like you spent a lot of time there. Tell me about an experience you had that you'll never forget on the prairie.
Oh gosh. I could give you a lot. I have been with American Prairie for 17 years now. So I have had a lot of time on the prairie. I haven't lived there myself, but I've spent a lot of time touring American Prairie's guests and also just with my family. As I mentioned, I have 2 middle school sons. So one of them, indelible image of my sons is belly crawling on a prairie dog town to see if they could sneak up on a prairie dog before it launched back down its burrow. Not successful.
Oh, shocking.
Shocking, but entertaining for the parents to watch. One of my favorite times on the prairie was pretty early in my tenure, and I was touring a National Geographic film crew who were going to be making a film they ultimately made called American Serengeti, an hour-long documentary about American Prairie. And we didn't have a lot of facilities at that point. We didn't have a lot of staff at that point. And it was February, beautiful, sunny, bluebird February day. The prairie was mostly snow-covered. And one of my colleagues at the time, who was managing the main ranch that we owned at the time, the main property, he was driving us around, and we were on this road going down into the Charlie Russell National Wildlife Refuge, which this property borders. All of a sudden, there were like lots of hoof prints on the road in the snow. I was still pretty new. I didn't know what it was. And he's like, oh, this is going to be so good. This is going to be so good. And he started just to speed up, and he sped up, and he basically parked at the top of this bluff. And we ran to the top of the hill, and we estimated 600 to 800 migrating pronghorn.
Oh, wow.
Like stretched out over a mile and 2 to 3 deep, just this enormous group heading down into the wildlife refuge. And we didn't have cameras, but it is an experience I will never forget.
And it was something that they would herd up like that.
They would herd up. Yeah, they do. And there was a winter couple years later that was really hard on the animals, where 70% of the population died in our region. This was before that, so there were really big groups. And so Bill looked at me and was like, this is something only the old timers talk about. I've never seen anything like this. And it was really, really cool.
How
cool.
No, yeah. That is really neat.
So it's those wildlife encounters.
You have bison.
We do.
On a portion of the land there. I've heard you guys describe the bison as a keystone species. Please explain to me what that means and why.
I think everyone knows what happened to bison on this continent. We went from 30 to 60 million to less than 1,000 animals in a matter of decades. So bison were all over the country, almost the entire interior of the country. We used to have bison. And so they shaped the landscape, right? And they shaped it with their grazing patterns. They shaped it with their wallows. That's where they lay on their backs and create those depressions that then create little microhabitats for other animals.
They make little ponds?
They make little ponds, oh, cool. Yes, which in a very arid landscape proves to be very valuable.
Yeah.
They die, and then they create food for others out there on the landscape. So those are some of the ways. But a keystone species is one that, other species depend on. And when American Prairie brought bison back to our first property almost exactly 20 years ago, they had been absent for probably over 100 years. Well over 100 years, maybe even 120 years. So bringing those animals back to those properties and managing them well. They're a livestock animal that American Prairie owns and manages. We are managing these herds, but when you're out there and watching the herd movement on a property, you could rewind the clock a couple centuries and feel like you were Lewis and Clark.
Very cool. You mentioned that American Prairie is 24 years old, nearly old enough to rent a Turo at this point. Yeah. You've been with American Prairie for almost all of that. What changes have you seen in that area as a result of, situations like you're just describing?
Bison's impact on that property where they have been now for, nearly 20 years, that property's in really good shape, and the ground's in really good shape. And that's attracting sort of other species. I think maybe a very relatable example, when I started, the idea, grizzly bears, for instance, were a prairie species. They have been pushed into the mountains, and as we know, they're moving back to grassland habitat. That was a dream that we'd ever see a grizzly bear on the prairie, and we've now had multiple grizzly bear sightings on American Prairie properties, on the furthest west properties in the Missouri River breaks. But you do see bears.
That's not classic grizzly territory.
Well,
right?
I mean, historically it was,
okay.
But yeah, historically, absolutely it was.
But thanks to us.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis and Clark, they saw grizzlies like every single day.
Okay.
That was absolutely, they are a plains animal. So, definitely we see improvements in the habitat. We have, and then in the public access that we provide, and we're now welcoming more than 6,000 overnight visitors and about 5,000 visitors to our National Discovery Center, some of whom then are probably going on to be day visitors as well. So thousands of people are going out to American Prairie each year. I was a marketing manager, my first job at American Prairie, and we produced a self-tour guide that was literally like just a couple pieces of paper. If you want to drive around, you could do this. And we didn't have any campgrounds. We didn't really have any programs for the public. And I think now we've rolled out the red carpet, and please come, please visit.
Is that the call to action? If people are just watching this and they want to get involved, they want to, do they donate or should they just go?
They should go, for sure. We certainly appreciate support at all levels. So yes, please donate. We have a relatively new volunteer program and a volunteer manager who's building out a number of volunteer opportunities, and those are all on our website too. So I guess maybe that's a third call to action. And I guess the fourth is just learn more and spread the word. I mean, here you are a Montanan and you didn't know about American Prairie before we started this conversation, and we recognize that we want to do more brand building, more brand awareness. Our facilities have seen increases every single year for the last 7 years. After COVID, it was 50% increases, of course, like
sure,
most everything, and particularly Montanans knowing they couldn't get into Yellowstone or Glacier came to American Prairie, which is great, and started those traditions that I referred to. So,
and you're teeing me up because you mentioned Yellowstone, you mentioned Glacier. In wrapping my head around this 3.2 million acre number, I know that it is basically Yellowstone and Glacier combined. It's a staggering number. It is 20 Gallatin counties. It's roughly the size of the state of Connecticut. But my little reptilian brain, I just thought about the biggest thing I could think of, and that's Costco. And so this is the dumb marmot game. It's called How Big Is Your Prairie? And we are going to compare 3.2 million acres to Costco. Okay. So my first question for you, how many Costcos do you think would fit in 3.2 million acres? Each Costco takes up about 3.4 acres. That's including the parking lot. Okay. So rough math.
A million Costcos?
It is a little bit less than a million. Yeah, yes. 930,000 Costcos. That's more than 20 times the number of Costcos on Earth, and they are all out of organic grapes. All right.
There will never be a Costco out here, just to be clear.
There will never be a Costco in the American Prairie.
That is, yes.
All right. That is a rock solid guarantee we just got from Allie. Okay. Let's next put Costco hot dogs end to end. How many do you think it would take to get across 3.2 million acres if it were square? We're not going to stretch out the 3.2. This is if it's just one big square. How many hot dogs? Let's assume
the other one was a real easy tee up, wasn't
it? They get harder. Let's assume that they're a foot, even though the Costco hot dogs clearly are not 1 foot. That it's 5,000 square miles. Okay, so diagonally that would be 158 miles. Is that helpful? How many hot dogs, Allie? How many feet?
Feet in a mile is 5,000.
5280.
5280. Yeah. I knew that. 5280. Wait, back me up here.
50. It would basically be 5280 times 158 is the math.
Okay. Yeah.
That you're being asked to do here. It's a big number.
North of 500,000.
It is.
Yes.
834,240 Costco hot dogs end to end.
Okay.
To get across 3.2 million acres.
That's astonishing.
If you're wondering how much that costs, it's $1.25 million, which doesn't seem like that much for 834,240 hot dogs, but that's the beauty of Costco.
The hot dogs are the loss leader. I knew that they were $1 too. Actually, they're $1.50 now.
Yep.
Yeah. You didn't. When we were warming up here, you didn't give me the opportunity to disclose that my husband is the homework guy in our house for middle school.
You did not tell me. That's the fun of the game, though. If you came in prepared, that would be no good at all. I would hate it. All right.
Okay.
One last one. If there were one giant Costco that occupied 3.2 million acres, how long would it take to get through the cold produce section? The worst part of any Costco trip is definitely walking through that giant walk-in cooler.
More than it. Wow.
They're usually 1% of the total square footage if you're taking in the parking lots into account as well. So 1% of 3.2 million acres is 32,000 acres.
Yep.
So that would be the refrigerated produce section. That's larger than Missoula.
That's actually the exact size of one of our properties. The first property we ever purchased Sun Prairie is 32,000 acres. So I can actually visualize that and what it would take.
What a giant walk-in
cooler
would look like. It's bigger than Disney World. 32,000 acres is 50 square miles.
Yep.
Okay. So each side would be 7 miles long, and the perimeter would be 28 miles.
Yes.
So how long would that take to walk?
Across
You're doing
7 miles.
You're doing, well, I think to go through the section, you're not just walking one side of it, right? You're basically doing a lap around.
Oh, you want me to do 28 miles?
Yeah, I want you to do 28 miles. How long is that going to take you?
3 miles per hour, 7, 8-ish.
8-ish.
Yeah.
8-ish hours.
Eight-ish
Over 8
hours,
hours
yeah.
to do a full spin. Bring a snack for that. I recommend Boom Chicka Pop, the kettle corn.
Are you allowed to eat the frozen or the grapes if they have them?
I think you should graze. If you're going to be there for 8 hours, you might as well have something,
yeah.
a little sustenance.
Sneak a golden kiwi. Yes, absolutely.
Point is, even, by Costco standards, American Prairie, very big. Everything that you guys have done, everything that you will do is enormous.
What would happen if I pushed the cart?
How big is the cart?
Yeah.
For a 3.2 million acre Costco, that thing has got to be just...
The cart would definitely slow me down.
It takes 40 people just to push it. It's a strongman competition. Allie, thank you so much for playing that. How big is your prairie game with me, and for sitting down and talking to me about your organization.
Thank you for featuring us. We really appreciate it.
And go to the prairie.
Go
guys.
to the prairie.
It's not flyover country. It is a destination.
And it is particularly good in the spring and the fall. So before the snow melts out of the mountains in April, May, and June, and then again in September and October, head to the prairie.
I'll be there.
Okay, good.